Good morning, students. It's class time with Dr. Chris. By the end of this class, you're going to know how to analyze a huge worksheet data with Microsoft Excel pivot tables. I've finally turned it into a sweet-looking interactive dashboard with pivot charts. What is a pivot table? A pivot table is a summary table, a very powerful tool in Microsoft Excel used to analyze and review the relationship inherent in a giant data list. It can also be used to summarize values in a data list without creating formulas to perform the calculations. It is indeed a magic tool. I am using Microsoft Excel 2016, and here you can see I have this huge data national sales sheet. If I scroll right down, you will see it's actually a huge sheet of data. So the application we are going to build is this. We are going to analyze this sheet of data using pivot tables. So here I've made some pivot tables: revenue by product, revenue by salesperson, revenue by state, revenue by sales date, quantity sold by region, and a whole lot of them. Then after analyzing this sheet of data using these pivot tables, we'll now convert these pivot tables to an interactive dashboard. So here I have salesperson slicers and states, and even here I have sales date timeline. So what happens is if I select the salesperson and I decide to slice by state, so as I click on Imo, click on Delta, click on Ogun, you see that the chart is changing dynamically. And down below here I have sales date timeline. I can decide to select January, February. I can see what is happening, the revenue chart, the revenue by sales chart, the revenue by sales date. Everything is changing dynamically. This is the application we're going to build at the end of the day. All right, so here we'll start. This is the national sales sheet table. To create a pivot table, you can actually do that in 3 different ways. The first one is to use the quick analysis tool. So if I select customer's name, which is where I want my pivot table to start, where the table actually starts, then I scroll right down to its ending. But remember, before I scroll right down, I will press F8 on the keyboard to enter the extend selection mode. Then I will scroll down to the very last cell in the table, which is this one here. So I will select it. So now you see that I've selected the data, all of it. Okay, having selected the table question, then here you can see the quick analysis tool I'm talking about. Is this little tool here. So when I click on it, then I click on table types, you can see pivot table 1, 2, 3, many of them recommended. So as I'm hovering on one, you can see the pivot table on top of the little box. Okay, from here you can insert the table. So this is sum of unit price, this is sum of revenue. You can insert your pivot table from here. All right, so the second way of inserting your pivot table is using the recommended pivot table settings. So here I have recommended pivot table. If I click on it, I will have this dialog box having recommended tables: sum of revenue by region, sum of revenue by state, sum of unit price by state. So you can insert your pivot table from here as well. Okay, the 2 methods I've just discussed is about inserting your pivot table using Microsoft Excel recommended pivot tables for you. But the heart of this tutorial is to create a new pivot table the way you wanted it. So to do that, you click on the pivot table on Insert tab on the ribbon. So I mean the pivot table here. So when I click on it, then I'll have this dialog box. The first one says choose the data that you want to analyze. So by default, the Microsoft Excel selects that data range. As you can see, from customer name to state region down to where the table ends here, then down to the left. So the table is rightly selected, so the range is correct. Now the second one says use an external data source. Of course, we're not using any external data source. You choose where you want the pivot table report to be placed. Here we have new worksheet and existing worksheet. So we'll play around these two. First of all, let's insert into a new worksheet. So we'll go ahead and say okay. So here we have our new pivot table layout. So on the left hand side, you can see pivot table fields. So when they say fields, it simply means the columns. If I move over to the national sales, you can see here I have columns here. The first one is customer's name, second one customer's ID, sales date, product name. So the fields here will correspond to the columns we have, though Excel might create extra columns depending on the kind of data you have in your table. All right, so these are the fields we have: the customer's name, the color, the category as it appears in our table. So down below here I have drag fields between areas below. So I have 4 different areas: the filters, the columns, the rows, and the values. So rows and columns, I think the terms we've come across even in Microsoft Excel. Columns are the vertical bars, while rows they are the horizontal equivalent, forming different cells. So I don't think it's a hard time to know. So the problem might be values and filters. So to explain this concept, let me just drag and drop something there. If I drag let's say customer's name to the row, see what happens there. It gives me the customer's name around the row, from row 4 to row 9. Okay, having a row title here, a column title, row labels. I'll drag quantity to the column field here. So observe what happens. For each customers, it summed the quantity. So for customer 1, it's giving me 552. Customer 2 is giving me 16. So from here I can actually know the customers that are buying more products from the nation. I hope you understand that. So I can drag this off. Remember, pivot table analysis is all about drag and drop mechanism. So if I drag this off, I can say okay, fine, I want to see the revenue generated by each customer. I drag to the values, it sum up the revenue for each customers. So whatever appears in this values field will appear in the last column of the pivot table. So it's actually be the last column of the pivot tables. So now you might ask, what actually is the function of this column here? Just as the name applies, column, they are the vertical bars as we said. So whatever you drag into this column will appear across the columns in the pivot table, while whatever you drag into this values field will appear at the last column, a kind of summary of the whole thing. So let's go ahead and do something now. If I drag let's say payment method to the columns, now see what happens. We have 3 payment methods according to our table payment method. So if you see, you have cash, POS, and web pay. So according to our table, because the payment method is in the column, it's giving me cash, POS, and web pay. And in analyze, say company 1 pays 228,1,000 through cash. He paid this amount through POS and he paid this amount through web pay, and he go ahead to give us the grand total of the revenue it generated. So you see that if I drag this off, for example, and I drag let's say state to the columns, so that the states appears across the columns again. So depending on the analysis you want to make with the pivot table, that will determine what to drag and drops in these 4 different fields. So, and what is filter? Just as the name implies, in Microsoft Excel, filter simply means kind of filtering some values according to what you wanted. For example, if I said, okay, I want to see these revenues, but I want to filter them by salesperson here. Okay, so I can actually say I want to see what this guy did appears a. When I select, I will say okay. So you can see that for this particular salesperson for company 1, he sold more, in fact not just in Imo, he sold only in this particular state, Imo. And this is what he sold to company 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and this is the summary. So the filter is kind of because if this table is large enough and is being updated often, so it will be a very huge data to analyze. So when you drag and drop some things, you need to filter to see some trends as it's happening. Okay, at this point I believe you've known what these 4 fields does: the rows, the columns, the filters and the values. In the next class, we'll try to create as many pivot tables as possible, format the pivot tables, and also create a pivot chart for a visual representation of the pivot tables. Thank you for joining us in today's class. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like and share the videos to your friends, and we'll be friends forever. Bye for now.